There we go. Hold on.
Ah,
Okay,
yeah.
guys. So if you haven't got your camera on, you need to drop your camera on. But we are live. So over to you, Mr. Francis West.
Good
Uh,
morning, good
yeah,
afternoon, good
you need to
evening,
put your
wherever
Elvis
you.
suit on.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can. We were
Oh,
just waiting for your
wonderful.
Elvis suit.
I should have worn it, but there you go. I just wait. Company profile. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're logging on from today. And welcome and thank you for making the time to come and watch another session. I think I look back. I think this is our 12th session today, Mac. So we've done a lot, and we've got so many topics still to cover. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's contributing today. We've got Simon and Martin and Paul and Ben, who's heads up our security team here at Security Everywhere. And
Francis, I'm going to jump in very quickly. We seem to have a technicality. You are frozen on our screen.
yeah,
So I'm not sure if you need to go go out and come back in again,
well,
because I'm
I'll tell
sure
you
all
what,
of those watching want to see your beautiful face, with those facial expressions um, and see what's going on. There we go. Okay, so you've come back as just a smiley face.
that's wonderful. Ben, do you want to quickly carry on? And then what I'll do is I will just log out and log back in.
No pressure, Ben. Ben, your volume is right down.
I've come first in losing the who's been left on mute button. So I was just actually trying to. I think I've just linked this through to my personal Facebook as well, so that it's streaming on there. Just play with StreamYard. Right, Francis, have we got you back? Give us a wave.
Yeah, I think so. I can see myself, so hopefully I'm back.
Here it is. There's nothing worse than IT people having IT problems. But anyway, now that I've got the mic, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching around the world. It's first Thursday of the month, so here we are for another cybersecurity LinkedIn live session from the Security Everywhere team, with the wonderful Mac making it all possible, the LinkedIn expert, and joined with some of our excellent panelists. And today we've got Simon from the London Cyber Resilience Centre and Paul from the Eastern Cyber Resilience Centre. We've got our guest star, Magic Martin. He's going to be joining us in a few minutes to once again impress us and leave us mind boggled at what he's doing. And we're coming back on topic today. Of course, today is all about impersonation and the fact that we've seen a massive increase in the amount of impersonation attacks that are going on via email. And it's something we've seen. There's been a lot of publicity that's been brought around by Google just recently about having email protocols in place to actually improve the deliverability of your emails, but mainly to stop the impersonation that goes on, particularly through phishing emails and particularly in bulk send phishing campaigns. So they've started bringing this in. But and it's in response to the fact that Francis, as you mentioned, I head up the security team for Security Everywhere, and we've seen a massive spike in the amount of impersonation attacks, and it's the new on vogue attack vector, if you like, for the scammers, because it gives them such an easy way of being able to commit fraud, but without actually having to hack. They're not having to actually trying to get in your network or trying to compromise your email system. They can actually use other ways to present themselves and impersonate whoever it is that they're a contact of whoever they're targeting, and then use that to actually social engineer them into paying an invoice to the wrong bank details, or making a money transfer again to the attacker and the scammer when it should be going to the client or the supplier. So it's something that's become massively prevalent, and like all the things that we discuss on here, Francis, there is things you can do about it. Yes, it is scary, but it doesn't have to be, because there are things that you can do to protect yourself. You minimize the risk. And once you've done that, you no longer become the lowest hanging fruit. So of course, the scammers and hackers will very quickly go looking for a much easier target than you. I mean, obviously, we mitigate the risk in terms of providing the protection, and that will work to 99% of the time. Nothing could be 100% because of the new sophisticated attacks that the scammers and hackers use. But I think this is something that somebody mentioned in the last session. Sometimes it's just not being the slowest runner, so they can, if you're better protected than the other people, that in itself means that you're much less likely to be targeted. So today we're all about talking how the attacks occur and what we can do to stop them. So Francis, I thought a good way to lead off is to start with the DMARC video.
Yeah, no, excellent idea.
Just to give a brief overview, we have something called DNS with your internet communications, and they are the internet signposts. That's where, when you look up a website, it tells you this is the server you want to go to. When you look up a company's email address, it says this is the email server you need to send the email to. Well, what we do is we put in some records in there that the receiving email server can actually look up, so that when you send an email, they know that it's come from a legitimate source, that it's actually come from the place it says it's come from, and that it hasn't been tampered with in transit. So we can set these records up, and if you play the video, hopefully that will give everyone a nice little introduction into how those records work, able to secure your outbound emails.
Yes, go for it, Matt, please. This is a little video that we made just to try and put it in layman's terms.
DMARC. Let's draw a simple analogy between DMARC and the Postal Service. John wants to send a letter to Emma. He places the letter inside an envelope and takes it to the post office. The postal clerk checks the information on the envelope to see who is the sender and who is the recipient. She also puts a stamp on the letter itself to confirm that this is the original letter sent from John. Now think of the following scenario. A hacker sends a letter in John's name to Emma. The letter will be delivered to her unless John has implemented DMARC, while SPF protects the envelope and DKIM protects the letter. DMARC checks the matching of the information on the envelope and the letter and decides whether to deliver the letter to Emma, landed in junk, or not deliver it at all. So DMARC acts as a bodyguard in this process, and not having it can be devastating for businesses. With DMARC in place, companies are safe from having their domain impersonated or spoofed in phishing emails, preventing fraud, financial loss, and account compromise, which can lead to data leakage. DMARC is being enforced by all the main email providers and needs to be in place to enjoy better deliverability.
Thank you very much, Mac, and thank you, Ben. You're my right-hand man every single time. Let me pass over to Martin, our World Guinness Record magician, that's going to share with us maybe on topic about impersonating or spoofing people. So over to you, Martin, because I know you've got to leave early, because I normally want to keep you for later, but I know you've got to leave early for a session in London. So yes, over to you, please.
Got a show today, the Magic Circle, which I'm very excited about. So yes, we'll need to be jumping off a little bit earlier than normal. But yes, if you haven't met me or seen me before, hello there, one and all. My name is Martin Rees. I'm a Guinness World Record breaking magician, and also I've been collaborating with the guys because magic very much ties in with security in the sense of a lot of the skills and techniques that I use as a magician, what cyber criminals and what criminals in general use as well. Now, I've come up with a little fun thing to do with this, because it's all about impersonating people and impersonations. And firstly, we're going to start off with a deck of cards. Now, I've got basically a cardboard cutout of a deck that's impersonating a deck of cards. But if we go 3, 2, 1, then we can make the box then print itself. So now we have an empty printed box, which impersonates the deck of cards. But once again, if we click, then that then produces the full deck of cards out of it, which is great. Now, the thing is, this is a red deck of bicycle cards. So the spades and clubs are black and the hearts and diamonds are red all the way through. So we'd class these cards as being red and black all the way through. The only thing is that usually we're getting someone to pick a card. We do it face down, so I can't see what you're going to pick, but we're going to do it face up this time instead. In fact, actually, I've changed my mind. Actually, it's all about impersonation, and this red deck is actually impersonating a blue deck of cards. In fact, so we actually have a blue deck of cards going on right now because it is all about impersonation. And in fact, actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take one card out for a second. This is going to be our impersonator today. In fact, I'll just take the bottom one, the King of Hearts, right there. I'm going to pop that into my pocket. The King of Hearts goes in right there. You can see that right there. Okay, in fact, one of you take yourselves off mute for me. Any one of you just take yourself off mute. Whoever comes off mute first will help. There we go, Malcolm. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Say stop anytime you like for me.
Stop.
Perfect. Okay, so the card you've picked today, I'm going to look away so I can't see, is this one right here. Hopefully you can all see that in camera, in shot right now. Is that good? Yeah, can you see your card, Malcolm?
Indeed.
Great, perfect. Okay, now you've got this card in mind. We're going to lose it back in the deck. And the thing is, I said the king is our impersonator today. I mean, does the king look anything like your card? I'm guessing it wasn't the king that you picked, Malcolm, was it?
No.
No, okay, great. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to bring my table up into shot for a second, because if we put the king on the pot right there, and if I bring this up into shot, there we go. Okay. All we have to do is this. If we take your king, take the king, our impersonator today, Malcolm. Think of your card for me. If we go ready, if we grab my lighter, which is right there. Okay, Malcolm, I'm going to say, if we go ready, 3, 2, 1, like so. We can then actually burn the king, and the king actually then changes and turns itself into the card, which is the 4 of, what was your card?
That one.
4 of hearts, yeah, there we
diamonds.
go. So, all right, there we go. Well, thank you very much, Malcolm. Everyone give it up for Malcolm. Thank you for your... Right.
Well done.
And so thank you very much for your help with that, Malcolm. And I'm going to pass back over because I know there's a lot of epic stuff you guys are going to go through today. But just if you are watching, I do offer a few different talks and lectures about the security of magic and how you can make yourself more secure. So if you're interested, then please do check me out. It's Magic Man Martin. You can see it on the scrolling bar at the bottom. And magicmanmartin.com is my website. So please do drop me a message if you're interested in how we can inspire your team to get creative with their thought process when it comes to security. So thank you very much, and I'll pass back over to you, Francis.
Thank you, Martin. That's excellent as always. See, Malcolm, even people in Portugal can be spoofed. So we've got quite a few questions that we need to answer today that we shared on the original invite. We're also going to share with you some case studies. We're going to share with you a number of statistics, and most of all, we're also going to share with you a link where you can run a test to see if we can send emails as you. And if you're brave enough, fill in the form, and we do this with your consent. But sadly, I would say out of every 100 companies, business emails that we check, maybe 98% of them do not have the correct email security records in place, which means that we can impersonate you. And we do this all the time now. And it's so funny when I speak to people on the phone, and also then, well, maybe not to the recipient, and we send emails to them. And I said, can you just check your emails? He said, yeah, you won't believe it. I just received this email from myself. I said, there you go. If I can spoof you, every scammer and hacker on the planet can spoof you. So we'll post those links in a minute. So before I continue, I really want to ask Paul. He mentioned earlier, because Paul and also Simon deal with a lot of these cases with the cyber resilience centers, and I'll ask them later for a quick update as well about what they're doing. But Paul, you were mentioning about even a recent case study that you dealt with, and again, you know, one could argue that could this have been avoided if they had the right email security records in place, or email security? Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Francis. Yeah, I mean, I think very much so. I think if the appropriate controls were in place, they probably would have gone down this particular way. But I know you're going to talk about some stats later, but Microsoft, who are one of our national ambassadors, one of the partners of the CRC network as a whole, they publish their analysis of the previous year's stats when it comes to these sorts of things. And they said that in 2023, there were around 165 to 170,000 business email compromise emails going through their systems every single day. So, it's a big problem. It's not just a few. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of these emails floating around, all of which could be potentially damaging to an organization if they received and acted on the information, which is what the case study I'm going to talk about to you now is. So it's an organization that we work with in 2023. The full facts of it are still not completely known either by the company. It's like when they're trying to work out what's actually happened. Sometimes they can't quite get to the bottom of how things have actually physically happened, but this is what actually occurred to the organization itself. So they were a manufacturing company and they were looking to purchase like a new commercial premises as part of an expansion. They were doing really well, business was doing great. And so they found a premises that they were really interested in, and they went to a local solicitors in Essex to handle the conveyancing. And as you'd expect, there was probably a personal meeting, some phone calls, but then a string of emails between the law firm and the manufacturing organization about the progress of the purchase of this particular factory that they were looking to buy. There were also some discussions about some personal things, and we talk about social engineering and the kind of stuff we put out there. And the managing director had said that, and he was handling this personally because it was a big purchase for the organisation. The managing director said he was going on holiday to Spain for a couple of weeks. So there was a date stamp, it was about 2 weeks, which the law firm was told about, but unknown to both parties. Again, this is what's believed to have happened. The email server of the law firm had potentially been compromised. And so there's a criminal gang looking at all these emails coming backwards and forwards. So they know that a manufacturing company is looking to buy premises. They know the law firm's handling the conveyance. They know the amount of money that's involved. They've got all the information. And importantly, they knew that the MD was going on holiday at a crucial point within the cycle. And then finally, the MD goes on holiday, and a few days later, on his phone, he receives an email from the law firm, he thinks, and it's basically saying, yeah, we're exchanging contracts today. Please, can you transfer the funds? I think £170,000 into our account, and what have you. And I think it's fair to say that the MD, he was on holiday, he was having fun with his family. He didn't use the kind of due diligence he might have done if he'd been in the office, surrounded by his staff, and so. But the criminals knew this, right? So that because they're seeing what's going on, and so he transferred this money into the bank account, and then that was it. And then a couple of days later, he from his phone he emails the law firm saying, "Oh, the contract's gone through," and to which the law firm saying, "What are you talking about? We haven't sent an email about an exchange," and then he realised obviously something had gone very badly wrong. Contacted the bank. The bank weren't interested. They said, "Well, it's like an authorised push payment. You'd authorised that money to go through. You're a business. You should have carried out the due diligence." I know we get questions about this from time to time. Well, because when you pay stuff now on your apps or your accounts, you get a thing coming up saying the account numbers and the match and what have you. I don't know. Clearly, that hadn't happened on this occasion. But basically, they never got the money back. They are in. I think talks is a polite way of saying taking litigation against the law firm currently to try and get the money back. The law firm don't obviously want to be named and shamed in public, so they'll probably settle out of court before the case ever gets to a county court. But obviously the law firm will lose the money, or the manufacturing company lost the money, and the criminals have gained £170,000. And 18 months on, I was talking to the MD a couple of weeks ago, and the firm didn't move into the premises. They couldn't afford to buy it. It really put them back. They've not been able to expand in the way they wanted to, and it has had a long-term impact, negative impact, both on the growth and success of that particular business. And it's fair to say, on the MD himself, he feels really stupid. He feels ashamed, embarrassed, all those kind of things. And again, he's very, very nervous now around doing anything online. Yeah. Himself, but yeah, it's entirely possible. That email that they got, what could have been a spoofed email, it could have been an email sent from the email server. Yeah. They've never been able to work it out. But if the law firm had the appropriate DMARC settings, which we'll talk about later, on the account, and a spoof email had have come through, then clearly that would have been picked up and would have been spammed or junked by the manufacturing company. who obviously then pay the invoice. So yeah, it's a really common thing. It happens time and time again. Certainly from speaking to some of the larger companies in our region, business email compromise is just a constant pain. It's, they're constantly battling with it. One of the biggest problems they've got day to day when it comes to deflecting criminal cyber attacks from their own businesses. And as I'm sure you'll come on to later, something which can be relatively easily remedied. Francis, do you want me to put that link in there for the NSSE check-in now, or?
Yeah, please. I've just posted it there. So if you can just expand on that, and Matt can put it on the chat.
Sure. Well,
I think that's a very good thing that people can do. Well, not straight away, but they can certainly do it straight up. But if you can expand on that, I think it's a great service. I've been using it for years.
So obviously, Simon and myself and the other CRCs, we work very closely with the National Cybersecurity Centre, and they produce some good guidance and good tools that we can all access free of charge. And this is one of them. It's an email. It's not the full email checker, which is only available to schools, charities, and the public sector, but all businesses can access this particular tool. And you basically just put your domain in. So for us, it would be everything that's after the @ effectively. So it'd be crcentre.co.uk for myself. And then once you've done that, you click check, and it will basically look at a number of the kind of key protocols and policies that should be in place, such as DMARC and what have you. It tells you whether or not you're compliant or you're not, and then gives you some further advice about what you need to be doing to make yourself compliant. So it takes moments to do, and you'll know instantly whether or not you are compliant in this area. But yeah, it's something, like I said, business email compromise is a huge problem. And I think, as Ben said originally at the outset of this, it's something which, it doesn't necessarily need any kind of like hack. You don't need to get in someone's network. The case study I gave you, that might have happened, we still don't know. But you don't need to do that. And you're then faced with an email which looks as if it's come from the organization that you think it should be coming from, which is really worrying.
Yeah, I mean, it's you've shared that one case. I can't tell you how many similar cases we've dealt with in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
One of our new clients who supplies a lot of food to one of the large companies, their main supplier in Spain were done, and they lost £250,000 because they thought that the attack came from our new client. And as a subsequent, they've now only paid them half. So if this supplier of theirs can prove that it came from them, which luckily in this case they can't, they will not pay the remaining 125,000. That is putting the business completely under.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And this is like the story.
Sorry.
Carry on.
No. All I was going to say as well, that, as well as, we talk about supply chain, and that's obviously what you're talking about there. We talk about supply chain a lot. And okay, most businesses probably haven't got the time to look at every single business they deal with. But maybe you should look at, and again, if you put the domain names of your supply chain in the same email checker you just posted, you can see whether or not they are DMARC compliant. And if they're not, maybe that's a question you want to have with them. And if they don't want to change it, maybe you want to go somewhere else to do your business. I mean, that's how serious this stuff is, isn't it? As well as protecting yourself and your reputation, I think it's about protecting yourself from your supply chain as well.
And I'm so glad you mentioned about supply chain, because we're all part of the supply chain. Whether it's the chemist, whether it's the doctor, whether it's the person that sends your mugs, that's all part of the supply chain. Did you know at the moment, I read an article the other day that there are 3 billion emails sent a day, and 150 billion of them are spam emails, which is insane. So my question, I just want to pass, thank you for that. Malcolm, welcome all the way from Portugal. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, we spoke about this before, is so why do out of these 150 billion emails, why do so many emails actually end up in people's recipients or say their junk or spam folders?
Thanks. Apart from the SPIF, DKIM, and DMARC, which we've talked about, which is something relatively challenging or difficult for the man in the street to set up for themselves. It's not just easy to go and change your SPIF records. It's not easy to, when you hosting your email, for example, in another host for where you're hosting your domain. So most people need help. It's explaining to them why they need help. But there are some other reasons why email, apart from those very necessary security measures, there are some other reasons that your mail can land up in the destination junk or spam. The first is you might have been blacklisted without knowing. Somebody could have blacklisted your domain and you have no idea why. And they don't have to tell you, and nor can you find out. The second, which really goes towards your reputation as a sender. So you can tarnish your reputation simply by sending a bad email that lands up in a junk folder, and it's perhaps a sales prospect, perhaps it's something else, some other contractual issue that we've chatted about, and it's done. The damage is done. So you got the blacklisting concept of why email doesn't reach the recipient's inbox. There are some others. The construction of your email. If you've got HTML in your email, poorly coded HTML, if you've got an embedded form, if you've got something like a JavaScript button, most of the training we offer today says, don't click the button. If you don't know it, don't trust it, don't click it. So they could also create that. Your IP address itself might have been blacklisted. So it doesn't even get past any of the physical network connections. And the last one I want to talk about is the missing contact information, where the sent from and reply to are not equal. And that's a big alarm. That's a big fat alarm. I think it's coming from Francis, but when I reply, it's going to Joe in India.com or something like that. So it's always key to look at that. And now the more aware we're making our users, the more they're noticing that, and the more they're right-clicking and just say mark as junk. And that's it, job done. Now, it doesn't matter how many times you send an email, they've marked you as junk or spam.
Yeah.
So it's the physical, the digital protection around DMARC and the like, the physical protection around blacklisting and network protection, and then don't underestimate the consequence of poorly constructed email.
No, that's very valid points, because I think that brings me straight back into another question. Then thank you for that, Malcolm, to Ben, about, you are the one with your team that actually fix these things all day long. What can you explain? I know we had the video earlier, but can you explain this to a business owner, who doesn't understand any of this? Can you make this sense in layman's terms, what we're talking about today, and why is it so important then? And how do you fix it?
Right. Well, I'll certainly do my my best, Francis. So we talked about at the very beginning. We have these domain signposts, these records that we can use, and we have these 3 email security records that we saw in the video: DMARC, SPF, and DKIM. So SPF's your starting place. That's that says these email servers are allowed to send emails for my domain. So typically it's going to be your main email service, your Microsoft 365, your Google Workspaces. But then you also have in there things like maybe your marketing platform. So SendGrid, MailChimp, Sendinblue, which I think is Brevo now, ActiveCampaign. You get the idea. You need to have those in there as well, because they are sending emails out as your company domain. And you may have a CRM or something like that in there, professional services system, where it actually sends out maybe help desk tickets or receipts to invoices, or sends out invoices, that kind of thing. And again, it's sending out as your domain, so that needs to be in your SPF record. Next, we have the DKIM. So for each of those email services, they have the opportunity to sign the email. And it's actually a public-private key cryptography. And what it does is it takes values from the sending email. So the length of the body, the number of characters, the number of characters in the subject, the from and to address, and it does a calculation. And then when it gets to the receiving server, that can actually use the public key that's listed in your internet signposts, and can do the reverse calculation and make sure that the email is exactly as it was sent. So that stops what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. It means that we can prove that the email wasn't manipulated while it was in transit. But actually what it does is it reinforces that the sending server was actually allowed to send your email in the first place because it's been signed. And it has to be then unsigned and unencrypted at the other end. So DKIM is a much newer addition to the records, but it's a really, really good way of authenticating that the email did come from where it said it came from. As our video said, DMARC is then like the bouncer. So the first thing it does, and people often forget this, and well done for Malcolm for bringing this up. It actually checks the email did come from where it says it came from, and this is where the spoof comes in, because very often with a spoof attack, the person who's doing the impersonation, the scammer, pretends to be Joe at abc.com, but the reply to address is going to hacker@xyz.com, and that's exactly what Malcolm said. That it makes sure that the from address that you see on the email is actually where the email came from. So the reply to address needs to match, but also there's a handshake that goes on in the background, and we can check the original sending server there as well. DMARC then gives us the option to tell the receiving server, how do we deal with that email? And this is where the video referred to the bouncer either letting the email go through, sending it to junk, or rejecting it completely. And this is the really important bit, Francis, because Malcolm mentioned about email deliverability. I mentioned about the publicity that DMARC has been getting in the press, because you need to have it and have just the most basic record, so that at least if you've got one, your email won't get automatically sent to junk. Microsoft 365 will send your emails to junk if you do not have a DMARC record. However, the basic advice is just to set the policy to none, which says if your SPF fails, if your DKIM fails, don't worry about it, don't do anything. Now, we actually need to get that changed to being on quarantine or reject, so that it actually then does what it's going to, if you've got a failure, it's saying, email server, get rid of this email. It's not right. But that also counts from the spoofing side. So where we said that DMARC checks the from with the reply to and make sure it does come from where it says it's come from. If it's on none, it still doesn't get rid of the email. It needs to be on quarantine, and that's the big thing that we've discovered at the moment. And there's now these the tools available online, as you mentioned, Francis. If anyone's brave enough to give us their email domain, if they may have a DMARC, but if it's set to none, then with that spoof email will still get through. So that's one of the key reasons I was so enthusiastic to have this as our topic, but is to get that awareness out there that yes, we can do something about this, but it has to be done properly, or else actually it's not doing anything at all. So that's why it's very important to have the DMARC record for your deliverability, but it's got to be set to quarantine or reject for it to actually stop the spoofing. So that was I'm going to say, hopefully the introduction of why the records are what they are, but why it's so important now, because otherwise you can be spoofed. And what happens when you're being spoofed? The attacker's they can look up your DMARC record. They can see either you haven't got one at all, or it's set to none, and they know you're an easy target. They can actually impersonate your domain with other companies and pretend to be you without you ever knowing.
I'll put my hand up if you don't mind, Francis. I've just run the check on my domain, and guess what? Policy is set at none. Then Ben finished talking, and I don't know if you saw me go cold and sweaty and start slipping out of my chair. My question is to you: how do you help me fix this? Because I have no clue, and I'm technically competent. I don't have a cooking clue.
Well, Malcolm, I'll get Ben to answer, but listen, thank you for being so honest. Because it's so, you won't believe how many times we even talk to insurance companies who sell cyber insurance who still do not even have this in place.
Yep.
and then I send them an email as them whilst I'm at a networking event in London, drinking a glass of wine on their phone, and they can't believe it. So, sorry, Ben, carry on.
Right, Malcolm. Okay, well, this is where it is something that you did say it's something that you need to get some advice on. You need something to get some help with, because you can just simply change that DMARC record. It's just a case of changing the text in the record. But what's the knock-on effects? Before you change your DMARC to quarantine or reject, you must make sure that the records are in the services are in your, not just in your SPF record, but they do support and you have enabled the DKIM signing. It used to be that if you didn't have DKIM, DMARC just ignored it and said, well, you haven't got it, so we're not going to check it. Now, if you have your policy set to quarantine or reject and you have no DKIM, it will see it as a failure. And so your emails will then get sent to either junk or rejected completely. So it just means that you need to be fully aware of what services are sending your emails, and then making sure that the platforms are providing the DKIM service. Now, all the main providers do. There's information on their help pages on what you need to do in the platform to get it set up. You can go in there and it provides you with the information within the platform, and then you need to add that into your internet signpost, your DNS. So it is a kind of.
Thank you, Ben. I'm sorry, I cut you short.
So Malcolm, so what kind of services do you use other than the main email service?
So I use Google Workspace.
Yeah.
Right. I have been battling along with this because I'm doing an email campaign in my business, and I'm bumping into people and I'm saying, get my email. What email? What are you talking about? And then I have to embarrassingly say to them, well, would you mind checking your junk folder?
Yeah.
And I don't like asking people to check their junk.
Well, gentlemen, can I pause you, because I think because of time, we've only got 19 minutes left, and there's so much more I want to share. But this is such an important point you just raised there, Malcolm, and that is that I don't know if people know this, but from the 1st of February this year, both Google, as in Gmail, and Yahoo are starting to enforce the DMARC record. So in other words, if you don't have that in place as a sender, in other words, imagine you're a marketing company and you are doing massive campaigns for your customers and sending massive email campaigns. If you're sending large amounts of email, as they say around 5,000 upwards, your email will simply be dropped. It won't even get to the spam folder. It will simply be dropped. And Malcolm, thank you for just reminding me now, because so many people have contacted us because they never mind being impersonated. That's obviously a problem. Hence why I did the video banging my head the other day. People care more about their emails not being delivered than their emails being spoofed. It's just the way it is. But this is so easy for us to fix.
What if it's 5,000 invoices? Even worse.
Or precisely. Imagine if it's one invoice that doesn't reach, or quotes, or all the other information that you're trying to send out to drum up business. So this is actually affecting businesses' ability to make money because the recipients are not getting the message from them because this was never fixed.
Right. So for me, just to close it, is I've gone to those sites. I've followed their instructions. I think I've done everything they told me to do. And then Mac puts up this thing, or was it Paul? Apologies. And I say, oh, well, that was a whole day wasted.
Well, Malcolm, what can I tell
got
you?
A problem.
You have the experts here on and this is why I tell people you're welcome to try it yourself, or come to us. Let Ben and his team sort this out for you, because I know when he starts talking, I understand the stuff, but trust me, I don't set it up, and it's just all I know. If it's not configured, you're either going to get spoofed or doesn't email. That to me is the simple message. That's it.
Sure,
it's so easy to fix, but it's like anything in life. If you're a heart surgeon and you've been practicing for 20 odd years, you know how to take a heart in and out. But if you don't do this stuff every day, you just don't know how to make it work. And if you get it wrong, it means that your emails are not being delivered. Never mind the security element. Anyway, listen, we're running out of time here, and I would so badly want to give Simon an opportunity to talk. Simon, can you give us the latest update? You know what's going on here.
Yeah, thanks, Francis. I mean, yeah, I agree. It's fascinating discussion and a really important point. I mean, there's two things I just wanted to highlight that have been said so far. One thing that I think Paul mentioned and yourself, Francis, about the importance of supply chains in this, and that I think if you look at the most recent cyber breaches survey, in fact, the next one is due out in the next few weeks, I think, with a bit of luck. But one of the key features there is that something like about 1 in 5 organizations do any form of review or assessment of their supply chain or their immediate supply chain. Their secondary supply chain is in single figures in terms of reviewing their security arrangements. So as well as doing these things yourself, it's important to ask those questions of those suppliers that supply you and make sure that they've got these things in place. So I think that was the first point I wanted to make. The second thing as well is, and I think Ben and Malcolm both hit the nail on the head here, what we've been talking about is actually pretty technical. And if we look at the demographics of businesses across the UK in particular, I think we say, 99% of businesses are categorized as SME. If we look at London, 95% are actually micro business, and that includes sole traders. Now, for most of those organizations, this stuff is, as Malcolm has absolutely quite rightly said, probably over beyond the ability of most people to be able to implement themselves. So the importance of working with others are really good. But one thing let's not take away the importance of here is about getting the basics right. And Paul's case study is a really good one. Whenever there are transactions, the good old-fashioned method of just sometimes picking up the phone to someone where you're doing an exchange just to make sure it is the person and the details are right, that they have sent it to the right person. It's those really simple things that we can train our staff to get right, which just adds that additional layer of security. So yes, there are technical measures we can do, but let's not forget about those basic controls. So those are just two things I wanted to highlight very quickly. And then finally, just talking very briefly about sort of the CRC and particularly London. Just to say, Francis, we're going to do something I'm really looking forward to in London over the next few months, which we're going to pilot a new approach in the capital, but building on the work we've done around community outreach. So one of the things we've been very passionate about in London is taking cyber security to the high street. So rather than doing events per se, what we tend to do is we go out with uniformed police officers and we visit businesses face to face. And we've been targeting hard to reach organizations, which have been really, really effective. And we've had some really, really fruitful conversations about changing the behavior of some of those organizations. Now, what we've tended to do with London is we've gone into one area, done a day here, day there, come back out again, and 3 or 4 weeks later go in to see what changes have made. We're going to pilot later on this year, starting in the autumn, a series of hubs where we're actually going to have a physical face-to-face presence in the capital, where people can come and see us, working alongside local police officers, cyber protect officers as well, so they're specially trained in the cybercrime units, and we'll be able to help some of those small businesses make some of those, or make them aware of what support is available through the NCSC, but the cyber protect officers as well will be able to help them with some more technical challenges that some of those companies have. So it's about building trust. And as opposed to just going in and out, we'll actually have a small number of bases in London where people can come and see us and hopefully have a coffee and a cup of tea and possibly even a bit of a cake as well to talk about some of their cyber resilience needs. So that was just me, Francis, giving a bit update what we're up to.
That's great, Simon. I'm looking forward to it. So here's a thing for you. How would you like it if I gave you a QR code where you can give people the ability to scan the QR code and to see if they can send themselves or if they can spoof themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and all these checkers are great. The thing for me is important as well is where these people know they can get some trusted support and advice from as well to address those issues. But it's such an important area, and as you've all said so far, impersonation is something we know is really concerning government at the moment. I know Home Office are very concerned about it from a cybercrime perspective, and as we're all seeing, the cases are going through the roof. So it's just about whatever we can do to reduce that vulnerability and make us less attractive than our next door neighbor.
Yeah, that's it. You know what I always talk about the lion. When the lion chases you, all you have to do is outrun the person behind you. Simple as that. And the same logic applies when it comes to cybersecurity. These are the simple things that we can do that has an immediate and instant impact on your cyber health. Now, I've just put a link there for Mac to post, and that's if you're brave enough and you want us to run a check for you, please just watch the video, complete the form, and we would be delighted to send this anonymously. Nobody else would see it. And then, of course, if you want us to help fix it with pleasure, but you can only fix things that that's wrong, and that's how we deal with everything. So Ben, I want to come back to you on another point, and that is about, you know, the not only the obviously the impersonation, but a few cases we've dealt with in the last 5 days. Typo squatting. How does this relate to what we're talking about today? And can you expand in again, layman's terms so that anybody can understand it, what it is, and can we prevent typo squatting by setting up the correct DMARC records?
Right, okay. Not specifically by the DMARC record, but let me give the whole context into this. So the whole point about the impersonation is they don't have to hack a network. Now, it normally starts because somebody's been hacked. And what's the valuable bit? You'd think it might be their actual corporate data. You know, very often on the smaller enterprises, the hackers aren't after the intellectual property and exfiltrating, you know, the latest plans for solar panels, or, you know, so they can be mass manufactured and then flood the market, if you've been watching the press recently. But what they do is they want your contacts, because now they can impersonate you and they know who your contacts are. So now they've got warm leads, and if you don't have your DMARC in place, they don't even have to, you know, even though they've hacked this person, they found out, they've kicked them out, sorted out their security. Now all their contacts are vulnerable, because they can impersonate the company that was hacked, because they don't have a DMARC. And that's what they want to do, because there's no more hacking involved. All they've got to do is do some social engineering, send some emails with some fake invoices. They can impersonate the company that's been hacked, and they know who to target, because they can see in their email threads who the customers are that they can then send the invoices to. And it makes all those customers incredibly vulnerable. So this comes back to what I think it was Paul said, is that actually, you know, companies should be promoting the fact that they've got these defenses in place to say, well, if you are a customer, God forbid anything happens, but it won't be coming from me, because A, I'm secure, and B, I've got the protection in place so that I can't be impersonated to convince you to pay money to the wrong place. So this is the latest. We always talk about the fact that the cybersecurity landscape is always evolving, that it's always becoming more sophisticated. So let's say actually there's a compromise. The company fixes their security, fixes their DMARC. How do they go after those customers? They use something called typo squatting, and this is where they do an impersonation, but not by actually doing a exact copy. What they do is they set up an email domain, but they switch one or two of the characters around, so it's really hard to notice. Maybe they use a 0 instead of an O, or very often they just literally switch 2 characters around, because our brain is lazy. It doesn't actually read every character. It looks at the beginning, at the end, and it fills in the blanks for us, and it all happens in a microsecond. And because you're expecting that email, because it's a known contact, you think it's that, you know, that it's obviously legitimate. You speak to these people all the time, you get invoices from them all the time, but actually what they've done is impersonate you by just changing that little detail. And then of course they're free to try and get you to, you know, convince you to pay an invoice, or pay the wrong you know, bank detail, to pay the money into the wrong bank. Now obviously DMARC can't stop that, but that's where good email security comes in. So just to make this reference, you talked about the company with the supplier, and they paid 250 grand to the wrong place. They've now paid 125. So don't forget, we feel sorry for our new client that they've not got 125 grand. But don't forget the supplier that cost themselves 250. Now in this case, it was a typo squatting. So actually, in terms of the people that paid the money to the wrong place, I don't have any sympathy at all, because if they had proper email security, it would detect that there's no historical relationship between the companies, and it will notice that there is between abc.com, but not abc-ish.com. And the email security will pick that up. Your basic Microsoft 365 Google won't, but a proper paid for enterprise email security solution would have gone, hang on a minute, that's not the right domain. We get emails all the time from this one, but this one that looks slightly different, no, we don't get emails from them at all. So that would straight away have been flagged as suspicious. So suddenly my sympathy for the company that paid the wrong details has kind of gone down, because, you know, it's not them that got impersonated. And, you know, this our new customer, they have their DMARC, so they couldn't do a direct impersonation. So they've used this other method. And actually, because the company that's being targeted for the fraud doesn't have the email security or, you know, proper email security in place, that's how they became the victim of the impersonation attack.
Wow.
So it's this new sophisticated way of doing things, but it is still preventable if you've got good email security in place. It's just doing the basics and doing it right, Francis.
So Ben,
I'm waving my mobile phone. Typo squatting is so effective on a mobile phone because of the size of the real estate.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Malcolm.
don't do big banking transactions on your mobile phone, you nutters. Don't do it.
Talking about nutters, okay. You know, Mac, who's very kindly always arranged these brilliant sessions for us, plus Joel in the background that does all the intros and extra. Impersonation attacks is not just by email. Mac, what about LinkedIn? As our LinkedIn expert here today, tell us about all these impersonation attacks happening on LinkedIn, how they happen, and can you avoid them?
I tell you what, it's frustrating as heck, because in the last week and a half alone, I've seen multiple cases of this. I've even seen individuals that have been approached, and all of their comments in their thread are being followed up by another profile with the same name.
Wow.
As an example. So, this whole DMARC thing with the email, if you could imagine the fact that people can spoof your email, the fact that, if they go and reset your email password on LinkedIn or any social media platform, that means they've got access to resetting and accessing all your data. And, I'm watching the frustration and the impact it has on individuals when they are hacked, because it's not something they're expecting. One of the most common thing is people use the same password on all their socials, and then that has an impact. And all they need is just one opportunity. So if they've impersonated your email and then sent a email reset for security passwords on LinkedIn, and I bet you people are watching this right now thinking, well, it's simple. It just makes sense to have the same password for Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, everything, because it's one password for social media. It just makes sense. But the reality is, if they can spoof your email on LinkedIn or on Facebook, which is also very common, that means they've just got access to all of your connection platforms, all that hard work you've done on social media, whether it's you or your social media manager or somebody else, and your credibility can disappear like that. So, if you can, all I'm going to say is please just reach out. You don't have to know how to do this stuff. There are professionals that can do it in minutes. Otherwise, you can go and spend hours trying to watch YouTube videos, figure it out yourself. And you make a mistake, and, is it worth it? So go and do this check out with Francis and the team, because if it wasn't for you guys, I'd be pulling out what's left.
Yeah, precisely. I know you're running over thin there. And the same reason, we could probably figure out how to use StreamYard and do all this stuff ourselves, but, Mac and his team are brilliant at doing this. And that's why let him focus on what he does. We focus on what we do. Simon does, Malcolm does his stuff. But I want to end up with one question for Malcolm. Malcolm, keep it short, because time is limited. Our next session is all about cyber awareness. Now, you and I have had many debates on this, as you know. How would cyber awareness have helped this customer who'd just been done by this impersonation attack, or sorry, even better, the typo squatting attack that we dealt with yesterday?
Three quick answers.
All this cyber awareness would have helped them.
Absolutely. 3 quick things. A vigilant workforce is a power. It's a powerful force, a vigilant workforce. The second, the encouraging the culture of communication and transparency of communication without retribution. Often people are afraid because they think they've made a mistake because this dodgy email has landed up in their mailbox. So encourage that without retribution. And to close with a statement that you have made, and I'm going to quote you, Francis. The problem, your people. The solution, your people too. And that for me, it's about people. No matter what amount of tech is there, and we've talked about Ben helping us, and we can all help and collaborate and become a community, which is definitely what we want. But everything is done by people. Tech is configured by people. Tech does what people tell it to do. People make mistakes. People are arrogant. People are proud. People are greedy. Human beings make mistakes. And we must grow a culture of tolerating mistakes and build a culture around that.
Lovely, thank you, Malcolm. But just I'm gonna jump in there. I'm gonna go something even more basic and foundational. And Simon, I think it was you that nailed it, because you train them, and it's not anything to do with the technical. If you're changing the bank details, pick up the phone.
Validate.
There you go. I've just trained everyone how to stop themselves making a payment to the wrong bank account. Pick up the phone and check. Yep. It's as simple as that. Something as simple as that could prevent you paying the wrong bank details. But in this day of urgency and pressure and deadlines, people just react. Just send it. Yeah, no, that's fine. We know them. That must be true. All they've got to do is, we've lost that old-fashioned way of thinking where we can actually just speak to somebody.
Imagine that.
What a genius idea, right? What a genius idea.
Back to basics.
Listen, we are right out of time, but I am going to do a shameless plug that we do have our Ask Me Anything session on the third Thursday of every month, and of course this month we will be following up on the topic of today, which is the impersonation and using DMARC. What it does mean is it's an audio-only event, but people can then come and join us actually on the platform, join the conversation, have their say, ask their questions, and be part of the live interaction. And we'll do our best to provide the answers and advice that you need to supplement what we've talked about today. So do please let everybody know it is a drop-in session. Just connect. Put your hand up. We'll invite you up into the audio platform, and obviously it's all anonymous, so you can hide behind the fact that it's not a video event. But please do come and ask your questions, and we will do our best to answer for you, so that we can get everyone more aware and educated and on the same page. So, Francis.
Thank you very much, Ben. First of all, you'll see on the screen there our email address, support@security-everywhere.com. So if you have any questions around today's topic, please email us and we'll gladly give you some time to help explain anything you need to know. Or if you want us to help you with setting up your DMARCs properly, we'll do that. Or if you want us just to run a quick test, it takes us 30 seconds to see whether you're vulnerable to these type of attacks. If you have any other further questions or you're watching this back, just put your questions in the comment section or send us a direct message and we'll respond, because we do monitor it probably by the second. And lastly, just want to say thank you very much to everybody here today that participated and for their own time. I cannot encourage you highly enough to find your local Cyber Resilience Center. There are 9 of them. It's free membership to join, and there's so much that you can learn from them, and they do a lot of great things. So that's why we are very grateful to Simon and Paul that always offer their time. I wish you a safe day and the rest of the week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.